Okay, we're ready for our program. Don Pica is going to introduce our program today, and I know it'll be a good one.
Well, thank you. Real Recovery is an organization that works with males that have cancer or have had cancer. And today we have Brent Rawson and Brad Perkins to talk to us regarding their program. Brent is a graduate of Utah State University in business marketing, and he has worked in the drug industry as a representative for the last several years for Genentech, which markets various drugs that are used to treat cancer. So I'm going to introduce Brent, and then he will introduce Brad Perkins, and they will give us our program today. So let's welcome him to the Rotary Club.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you very much for allowing us to come in here and talk a little bit about Real Recovery. It's something that's very close to our heart, and it's something that hooked me in, no pun intended, back in 2004. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Do we have fishermen in here? How many fishermen do we have? Well, that's more than half the group. So we all know what fishing does for the psyche. And in 2003, there was 3 guys that were fishing out of Colorado, and one of them came down with brain cancer. And they continued their fishing trips, their fly fishing trips, and Stuart Brown said, you know, when I'm fishing, I'm not thinking about my cancer anymore. Wouldn't it be really cool to put together an organization that serves men with cancer? We have lots of organizations for women, but not very many for men. So his 2 buddies started Real Recovery 2003 in Colorado for the first retreat. And I had a colleague in Colorado that knew I was in the cancer industry that called me, knew I fly fished, and asked me if I'd be willing to help out in Utah. I knew a lodge, actually where we had taken our doctors for dinners before. And so we tried that lodge, Falcon's Ledge, and they're still a facility that we're using today, been very supportive of Real Recovery. We have a retreat next week for 3 days. What I'd like to do is show a video, and then I'll return after the video and talk a little bit about Real Recovery as far as kind of the logistics of what we do there and our expectations. So.
It doesn't matter if you're a multimillionaire and you can afford to do this every other week, or whether this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You make the most of what's given to you. And that's what I do.
Real Recovery is a national nonprofit organization, and we conduct free fly fishing retreats for men with cancer.
Most men are very reluctant to talk about personal things like cancer, you know. We found out that Real Recovery helped to draw that out of us.
Getting old and having some physical problems, but one of my good fishing buddies. You know, all my life, fishing has been an opiate for me. When things are so bad, my wife can't stand me. She'd say, why don't you go fishing Saturday, come back, be a human being.
A Real Recovery retreat provides a variety of different things. Probably number one is it gives them a break. A lot of these guys are in day-to-day grinds with their cancer. They're on chemo, they're going into the hospital frequently, they don't have the stamina to do the things they used to do. And we're giving them 2.5 days where they don't have to do anything but enjoy themselves.
I knew that we were going to do some fishing. I knew that we were going to do some talking, but I had no idea that it would be this phenomenal.
Dating back to our first retreat in 2003, we are up to about 990 men.
We have a
You're almost at 1,000.
traditional ceremony as part of the fishing program. Before the men go out, we give them each a fishing vest to use during the retreat. And we ask them to sign their name, the date, and the place. And then they wear that one vest throughout the retreat. We've been doing that since the first retreat in 2003. but it's a very powerful legacy that exists in these vests, and they're really sacred garments to us. And the men get to wear them and know that on their back are 20, 30, 40, 50 former participants there with them.
So I borrowed this guy's fly rod. I'm out there just fly fishing, and we get all done for the day. And this little guy, he says, Marty, he says, man, he says, you look just like Zorro out there today whipping that thing around.
Yeah, we have friendships, we catch fish, but fly fishing does something to the mind, and it really takes these guys away from their disease, and that's what's so cool about it.
The out of doors is where it's at when you need to blow off steam and reset your thinking to your proper values. And this was good here because we not only did that, but we did it with some fellows who share our mutual problems.
Once they've come to a retreat and seen other men go through similar circumstance and come through it, it's given them the hope and courage to go on with their treatment, and they tell us that it's because they came to that retreat that they're still alive.
I'm not gonna cook anything that small.
You know, I finally realized once I got cancer that what do you do when you get that kind of news? You go skydiving, you go Rocky Mountain climbing, you go fishing. You know, it's just all kinds of things. You realize what's important in life. You don't worry about the little things.
He got 7 out of here and he educated them. It's time to move.
We're having a great time together, and that's the purpose of this. Have a good time and let your hair down, if you will, if you've got hair.
Thanks, Kevin. So, you know, how we work this is that we have volunteers, and then many of them could probably be yourself if you wanted to volunteer, but we have volunteers that fly fish, and we call them fishing buddies. And so they volunteer, so we have like about 12 participants per retreat, so we get 12 fishing buddies. And what they do, they just go out with them all day. They tie on their flies, they take them out of the trees, you know, they show them how to cast. And it's really not about the fishing. If they catch a fish, that's great. It's about the conversation. It's about the friendship. And a lot of these guys say, well, you tricked us, because when they get there, they think they're just going to fish all the time. But we make them get into groups in the evenings, in the mornings, and they talk to each other. And you'll get these guys come in, and they're just these real stern, macho guys that think cancer's only them, no one else. And then they talk to someone who has brain cancer across from them or pancreatic cancer. Pretty soon it's pretty therapeutic, and they start to open up, and then these guys become very close. And we've had many of the participants say that was the best part of the retreat. Since 2010, we've had retreats just out of Mackay, Idaho, for the Idaho folks, and they've been wonderful. And we're actually looking at bringing on a second retreat in Idaho because of the response with the cancer clinics and supporting us with participants to come to those. This is really all free to everyone. The fly fishing, they get 2 days lodging, 3 days there. They get all the food. We always have a top chef there. We spoil them. We give them the best rooms, fishing gear, whatever they need, and then we take them out, and then they all eat together, and all the buddies go out in the parking lot, and they toss hamburgers and stuff or whatever. It's really fun. But my role is I started out as a fishing buddy, and now I'm the coordinator for Utah and for Idaho, and I'm soon to turn over that position to Idaho people. So we have people, I don't know if any of you fly fishermen know who Hank Patterson is, but he's going to be one of our coordinators. That's his fictitious name. His real name's Travis Schwartz. He's kind of a comedian in fly fishing, but he's from Idaho, and he's going to be your coordinator, one of your coordinators. Brad, who I'm going to have just talk in just a minute, who's a local person here, will be our facilitator. So all this is done through donations. In Utah, we just had what we call a spring bash. Every year we do a spring bash. We go and gather vendors in the area, fly fishing, jewelry for the ladies, fishing trips, whatever, are donated, and then we have a fundraiser, and it usually pays for all of our retreats. We have 2 retreats per year, sometimes 3, and that's up to about 30 guys per year that we get to treat. And oftentimes I'll have these guys call me after the retreat and they want to go to Cabela's or something, can you take me, let's buy a fly rod, I really like it. And they really caught the grasp of what we're doing and what fly fishing did for their cancer. They're 2.5 days cancer free. And they're just like giddy kids when they all talk to each other at those retreats. So anyway, we're going to try and come up with some ideas for fundraising in the state of Idaho. And we've had the Wood River Foundation that's been very generous with in the past, the St. Luke's Foundation. We're always looking for little ways that we can pay for these retreats. And it's usually right around about $750 per participant to take them to one of these retreats. Everyone else volunteers. And we've now served over 2,000 men across the country in about 20 states. So I'll just get up and if you have any questions, answer any questions you have. I'm going to give Brad just a minute to talk about, he's had a little bit of experience with rural recovery, and he's going to be kind of taking over the reins here in the Idaho area, and he'll tell you where he's from. Brad?
Well, thank you. I'm from Murtaugh. I was born and raised there, and grew up and moved about 1/8 of a mile away from home. And actually, I never grew up, but that's as far as I got from home. My father started a community True Value in Murtaugh in 1954, and so I got to work with him until he got to where he couldn't go in anymore when he was about 80 years old. And so I'm still there. So we have the hardware store, it's a farm store, and the sporting goods part, the fishing shop is called Dry Creek Outfitters. You might have heard of Dry Creek. We also have a manufacturing company there where we make fishing tackle, and that's called Dry Creek Custom Baits. And so all that's in a little town about 20 miles east of here. And I've always had a passion for fishing, and after college, you grow up through high school and you do all those sports, and after you find yourself kind of, what do I do now? Well, Brent and I met him at Utah State, and we decided to start fishing together. And even though we live hundreds of miles away, we still get together once or twice a year at the least and fish. And so where fishing's my passion and his, he always talked about real recovery. And cancer has probably hit everyone in this room, and as it's hit me. And so I've always had such a great interest in real recovery and what they did. Well, last year I got my first opportunity to go serve these men at Mackey Wild Horse Ranch. And I knew it'd be emotional for me, but I never realized the power of what would be there. The facilitator that is over real recovery, his name is Bob, and he's amazing. He gets these men to talking to each other and talking out loud. When they show up, they're not talking very much at all. Some of them aren't even sure they want to be there, and some are really excited to be there. But a really neat thing happened this year, and I'm glad I was there. For the second day, they said, "Bob, why are our fishing buddies not included in our talks?" And he says, "Because it's personal. They don't have cancer. They won't understand what you're going through. And that's just for you guys." And they said, another guy spoke up and they said, "No, without these guys, we wouldn't even be here. We're with them all day on the river today, and I want my fishing buddy there." And another guy pipes up and says, "I want my fishing buddy there. He was amazing." So long story short, we all got to sit in with them on their group meetings for the last day. Well, the thing that I really noticed was even the men that came very, very angry, they left with a much softer heart and much happier. And around the circle, the last day, Bob calls on each one of them, and he says, "Now, what are you going to do different, men, when you go home? And how are you going to feel different?" And almost every one of those men said, "I'm going to be nicer. I'm going to treat my wife like she deserves to be treated, and my children. And I'm going to try to not go back into the shell that this brought me out of." And so almost every man was going to go home and be a kinder, gentler man understanding he's not by himself anymore. So Real Retreat gets their mind off their battles while they're on the river, and they're concentrating on trying to learn how to fly cast. Fly fishing is difficult when you first start, so it does take their mind off of their problems because they're concentrating on trying to deliver that fly to where they might catch a fish. But then at night and the morning meetings, that's where it really changes their life, I think, for the better. So I knew I wanted to be a part of it. It was very emotional. And then I got the call a few months ago inviting me to be groomed to become Idaho's facilitator. Well, I'd feel very inadequate to do so. I know my heart will be in the right place, and I'll follow this Bob around for a long time until I think I can take over the reins, but I'll do my very best. But having a small business, I know what it's like to sit where you're sitting. We donate to every organization under the sun in the small communities. 2 to 5 times a day, I probably have people come to me needing for something, for some organization, and they're all important. Well, here I am on the other side of that, hoping to get some help from you folks, and it's such a worthwhile event, and it changed my life. I'm so proud to be a part of it, and thank you for giving me these few minutes today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Brad summarized that very well. Thank you, Brad. Are there any questions, anything in regards to rural recovery that, yeah, go ahead.
Wondering if I could get a list of your favorite places to fly fish.
Before I became a dad or after? Yeah. You know, being in the oncology business and in the industry, I've been blessed to be able to fish all of Idaho, Montana, and Utah, and I've got to know the whole area. And most people will go to the restaurant or the hotel, and I hit the stream, and then I hit the convenience store on the way back, and then I go do my job the next day. Yeah. You mean to be participants or buddies? Participants. So, I know in my area, because I call on the cancer clinics, I've been able to talk to the nurses, the patient advocates, and the physicians. Next week we'll have 2 physicians at our retreat in Utah. They support it, and then they talk to their patients. And you know, this is not really do you fish or do you fly fish? It's, do you like the outdoors? Would you like to go on this retreat? And it's really just a way. These guys are just getting chemo all the time, and it's just really a way to get them away. And Brad nailed it. A lot of times it's the wife that says, "You're going." Oh, yeah, you're going. And they fight it, and they get there. You put your arm around them, and pretty soon they're having a great time. But yeah, it's the cancer clinics, and then they have the little brochures across the country in the different states. In the South in Texas, they catch a lot of bass on a fly rod, a lot of other things. But we're all over the country. Anybody else? So, well, thank you once again for this opportunity to come in and share what we passionately love to do. And I'll turn it back over to President.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
President, one more thing.